Hello, and thank you for joining us again today. I am today accompanied by Dr. Magda Brattolia from Italy, the region of Puglia. Dr. Brattolia is at the head of the atmospheric particulate matter and olfactometry department of the Environmental Protection Agency from the region of Puglia in Italy. Today we're going to talk about the evolution of odor assessments, current odor regulations in Italy, and future regulation. Dr. Brattolia, you recently released some new and enhanced regulations in the region of Puglia. Can you tell me about what was the regulations? Why did it need changes, and what changes did you bring to it?
Yes, firstly, I have told that Italy has no national legislation, so that some regions have to adopt some own regulation to solve their problems. So in Puglia we had an old regulation, the regional law number 7 of 1999. But it is not applicable because it sets to distinguish the limits for compounds that are distinguished according to their odor threshold. But that regulation doesn't provide any information about what compounds we have to monitor, what are the methodologies to monitor, what are the other thresholds that are used. We know that in literature we have a lot of other thresholds for the same compounds. So it makes it difficult to apply. We have this need. This year, Regione Puglia has published a new regulation, the number 23, 5 months ago. It was published, and the key points of this new regulation modified some parts of the old in order to make applicable. The first key point is to limitate the odor annoyance caused by plants, because the norm doesn't permit diffuse emission, but all processes have to be controlled, have to be carried out in closed environment with convoyed and abatement systems that produce minus odor mitigation, odor emissions. Moreover, in this new law, we choose 40 chemicals and we fix limit for them for punctual and diffuse emissions. And the choice of these 40 chemicals was due to the representativeness of these compounds and to the reference methods that we can use to reach the limits according to the detection limit of the methods. Another novelty is the introduction of the limit concentration in odor units. Not only chemical approach, but also an olfactometric approach that considers the synergy of the compounds. We fix true limits for diffuse and for punctual emissions. The last novelty of this norm is the legitimization of population complaints, because the norm says that if through opportune investigation it can be able to individuate the source with certainty, the source of odor emissions with certainty, more strictly requirements have to be applied to the source. So this point is very important for us to implement restrictive prescription.
So you've added the olfactometry limits, and you specified individual chemical limits. What is the value of keeping those chemical limits to the regulation, and not just going just to olfactometry?
Yeah. According to the chemical limits for the 40 compounds, we consider also the odor threshold, but we parameterized this odor threshold. We we refers to a unique odor threshold reference that is the study of Nagata. So we have a list of other threshold. We parameterize this other threshold. It is so long, complicated to explain. While the olfactometric limit, we choose them the limit after having done an overview of international legislation. So we have done a compromise between all of them values. We can try to apply this limit, but the feedback that we receive after the application of this norm can be useful to improve the limits that we fixed.
Okay. Yes, thank you for specifying that, because there are a variety of different odor thresholds for the same contaminant. So you've actually done your research. You didn't develop and test your own threshold. You've blended them together to define one. Is that correct?
Yes, it is difficult to put together, but we choose a unique reference, a unique table of other threshold that we use the Nagata study. And we choose them for reference.
And how is the synergy of these chemicals taken into account?
We consider the synergy by introducing the olfactometric value limit. We consider individual compounds as tracers as markers of the emissions typical of each activities. So that each plant is process is different from another. So we consider 40 compounds, but not only have to be monitored by all activities. All activities have to be find the marker of the activity and monitor them.
And what about the odor concentrations limits? You have odor concentration limits for fugitive emissions and for stack emissions or point sources emissions. How were those emission limits derived?
Yeah, we consider two limits for diffuse, 1300 odor unit per cubic meter, that we considered after doing an overview of international legislation, and according to the stack emission, we can consider also another aspect that is based on a modulation of this limit according to the eye of the stack. There are legislation that consider this, and we, in our opinion, it is a good approach for us.
Is the distance to the fence line considered?
The distance it isn't a limit, a fixed limit for the distance, but in the guideline that the Environmental Protection Agency published, a specific guideline of a wastewater treatment plant, it considers also a limit in odor concentration at fence, at boundary of the plant, and also this limit can be modulated according to the distance from the first receptors, so that if the plant is very next to residents, to the first receptor, this limit can be decreasing.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Brattolia, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen.